I'm John Batchelor. Mary Kissel, the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal and the host of Opinion Journal, is here with me. And Mary and I speak of polls now and again. We like to consider that they're rearview mirror, but polls can be confusing, especially because they weigh on political discourse. They sit heavy on the shoulders of headline writers and editorialists. And there was a recent poll that confused everyone because it looked alarming, but it was so partisan alarming. You say, what? Quinnipiac did a poll in which we learned that Barack Obama, the present president, who's not through his second term, and was elected overwhelmingly twice, and has very high personal approval. He's popular. He's got a beautiful family, and he's very active, and he's very good at picking winners and the basketball tournaments. You know, it's all very impressive stuff personally, fine, and he's vigorous, but he was ruled in this Quinnipiac poll, which is an esteemed organization for doing polls, as the, how'd they put it, Mary, worst president?
Yeah, worst president ever, I think it was.
Worst president ever. Puzzle. Sean Trende of Real Clear Politics joins us now because I appeal to Sean, who deals with polls all the time and can push aside all this foliage. I appeal to Sean to help me understand, am I supposed to pay attention to this? Does it have significance historically? Is it the way the question was asked? Sean, a very good evening to you. Can I throw the Quinnipiac over the side saying they were just looking for attention and they got it? Good evening to you, Sean.
Well, I think the poll as a whole actually has some value to it, but that particular question, I think, was just clickbait for Quinnipiac College. I think it was a poorly worded question, and I think there isn't too much we can glean from it.
The puzzle I have now is, what do we do about the president's approval rating? Because it's, what, 44, 45%?
Well, yeah, Sean, I always thought that the president personally was popular, but his policies, like Obamacare, which has never gotten majority support, were very unpopular. Does that trend continue, Sean?
To a certain degree. Actually, his personal favorable rating has suffered of late as well. Now he's still personally more popular than his job approval rating would suggest. But really, everything is kind of taking a hit now. It kind of feels like the wheels are starting to come off a little bit, but it's too early to declare it that bad.
All right, how early can it be? He's only got 900 days left. This is an 8-year term. I mentioned there's a confusion for me. The president is popular. He has an attractive family. The president's approval rating is 44, 45%. The policies, however, are in the 30s. They might even be in the 20s on some particular day. So, are these questions arranged so that they confuse everyone? Is that the idea? And we're left to find what we want, like 8 blind men and an elephant.
You mean a conspiracy, John?
Yes.
Is that what you're saying?
I'm just wondering if the pollsters are having a game with us here and that they know it and they sit around smirking like economists. You know, they believed us today. Let's try a whopper tomorrow. How is it, Mr. Trende?
Well, I think that pollsters... I think those poll questions all illuminate different facets of the Obama presidency. I think that's how you have to read them, is that, people like Barack Obama and his family.
Right.
They think he's doing a below-average job as president, and on the specific important issues, they think he's really not doing a good job. And so when you take it all together, I think the job approval is kind of the average of all that, and that's what you should really be paying the most attention to.
But, Sean, when you compare it to Congress, Obama is a superstar, right?
Yeah, Congress's job approval, is just above 10%, which is not good. Now that is always the case. The president is always more popular than Congress. I think maybe during the Nixon years that wasn't the case, but otherwise the president's always more popular than Congress. It's just everyone is in disfavor right now.
All right, now I want to go to what I enjoy about polls. We have history. I learned from Gallup, who also was responding to that worst president ever. I learned from Gallup that Mr. Obama, his term is 900 days left, is for average job approval for the whole time in office at 48%. George Bush finished finished his 8 years at 49%. He did very well in the first term during the war, did very poorly in the second term during the war. And that's just the way it averages out. Gerald Ford was at 47, Jimmy Carter at 46 for one term.
Wow.
And Harry Truman at 45 for 2 terms. Harry Truman, a man who is regarded...
I mean, can you take this seriously when Carter is rated over Truman? I mean, come on.
I understand.
That's ridiculous.
I will blame my parents for the Harry Truman part, all right? And
Okay.
I will hold other people, sort of my older uncles, for Jimmy Carter. Gerald Ford, I can remember Barack Obama. But this overall approval rating also doesn't satisfy me, Sean. So I will go farther into this. What happens after the June of the second year of the second term? Well, we're going to be very specific, which, by the way, if you translate it, is where we are now. Okay, this is July. I learned that there can be sharp declines in average approval after such a year. Lyndon Johnson plunged 12 points and leaving office with an average of 55, which is surprising given the burden that Lyndon Johnson gave to my generation with the Vietnam War. Bill Clinton gained in the second term, having to do with sympathy for the impeachment melodrama.
Well done, Republicans.
And how Mr. Gingrich presented himself. Richard Nixon didn't change whatsoever, which is surprising to me given Watergate and his being expelled from Congress. George Bush, however, let's go to that, Sean, declined 9 points after the June of the second year of the second term. That looks to me where it feels like Mr. Obama is headed. Does that all make sense to you, Sean, that we can track a president on the basis of what he does in the last 900 days, which is what this does?
Yeah, that's right. I think, presidents tend not to finish strongly, except in unusual circumstances like, Mr. Clinton. Obviously things went well for him at the end of his term. But I think that's right. I mean, that's why I said, we kind of chuckled about me saying it's still early to judge where things are heading with Obama, whether the wheels are coming out or not. But that's really what I meant, that this tends to be an inflection point, or it can be an inflection point for presidents, and we're starting to get that feel with Obama, but we just don't know for certain right now. We'll have a better idea in a month or two.
Sean, the million-dollar question: how does the president's approval rating affect midterm election outcomes? Everybody's looking towards November.
Yeah, a lot of my liberal friends like to joke on Twitter. You say something about approval rating. Oh, there goes the third term, ha ha ha. But in truth, it's incredibly important for midterm elections. It's one of the strongest predictors of where things go in midterm elections. And so with the president who's unpopular, his job approval in the mid to low 40s, that can spell some really bad results for the president's party if it ends up that way in November of 2014.
And it's his overall approval that matters, not the policies. I mean, if I check off the policies that people are asked about, the economy, jobs, foreign policy, it's hard to find anything that reaches 40. So how do we get to 44 for the president? What averages that up? I mean, I remember math a little bit. I think you need something higher. I think you need something higher than 44 to explain this, Sean. What is the magic approval that he's getting in the 50s?
Well, it might well be that it's different people who answer those questions. Like someone disapproves on the economy, someone disapproves on immigration, but it cancels out and people give them the benefit of the doubt. But ultimately, I think you look at the job approval number because that's the final say. But you also kind of read between the lines a little bit. If the president had really high job approvals on policy issues, you would say there's something kind of transitory that's dragging him down. But ultimately, people will start liking him again. But with policy questions lower than his overall job approval, you have to say this is probably as good as it gets right now.
Sean, polling, is it a real science? I've lost all faith. Nate Silver really blows the Brazil game, the World Cup. Karl Rove blows the 2012 election.
You're upsetting me, Mary, to bring up the World Cup.
I mean,
and Nate
really,
Silver. That's not fair.
I hear you talking. I hear these numbers. I hear this, hemming and hawing. How much can we really rely on these polls?
Oh, quite a lot. And I will say briefly in defense defense of Nate, he said it was a 66-33 proposition. Well, if a doctor told you had a 66% chance of surviving surgery, you would be apoplectic. You'd think you were going to die. I mean, he actually said there's a pretty good chance Germany would win. And that's the thing with polls overall, is that they have error margins, that are plus or minus 3%, and that's meaningful.
I don't get an error margin in editorial. I mean, they run a correction if I'm wrong.
Well, let's because we're in July now, and we're going to come back to Sean probably September. Where are we headed, Sean? Trend is everything here, not the raw number. You are indicating to me with those low approvals in significant policy issues that the president is headed lower unless. Is that a fair summary of what you're seeing?
Yeah, I think, I think low 40s is probably where we're going to stay. I think we'll see fewer mid 40s and more low 40s. But it is hard to say. I mean, the economy could really take off.
No, Sean, it can't. No.
Where are you living, Sean?
The Federal Reserve is going to make.
Who told you that?
Yeah, all right. And I suppose suddenly ISIS would come to its senses and want to go to Hollywood. Is that it?
I'm an optimist.
Putin will make nice.
I understand, but all right. I won't ask Sean Trende this question. Final question. I'll ask Sean Trende to comment on a pollster who's saying, with approval ratings significantly below 40 with major policy issues, I should expect that the best is behind us. How's that, Mr. Trende?
I think that is a fair assessment.
Sean Trende, who's the senior poll analyst at Real Clear Politics, Mary Kissel of the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal. And remember, we're not paying attention to worst president ever. We're looking at the second part of this year leading into the election. That's what's everything. It's all about November. I'm John Batchelor.